investors who we've been speaking to when Wall Street trading resumes next week, and there certainly was some of the market yesterday. Our next guest, says it was the right bomb at the right time. Retired Lieutenant General Thomas Spoehr is with us, Director for the Center for National Defense at the Heritage Foundation. Right bomb, right time, General. Tell us why.
Connell, thank you very much. So this was a bomb that has been in Afghanistan for some time now. The target were presumably in tunnels, caves, in a relatively isolated area in a place called the Nangarhar province. No civilians nearby, no real easy way for U.S. forces to get there. This bomb came in. It could take out a number of people and surprise them. So with little bombs, if people get a heads up, they can take cover. With one big bomb, no warning, and you can kill a lot of people and, frankly, collapse tunnels.
You know, it's interesting because there's been a lot of, obviously, reporting on it the last couple of days. Anytime something happens that has never happened before, you're going to see that. But to your point, it could have happened before. The authorization has been there, and we've learned in today's reporting that the authorization for this general to use this type of weapon was even there in the previous administration, or at least we're told that was the case. But I notice in your writing, you point out, and maybe it's an important point to make, that as strong as this is, as strong as this weapon is, and the big title on it, the acronym Mother of All Bombs, it's nowhere near nuclear. And I saw you almost made that point. You thought it was an important point to make.
I did. You know, there was a lot of early reporting starting to equate the MOAB, the Mother of All Bombs, to the nuclear weapons used in Hiroshima or Nagasaki, and they are nowhere near. They're a thousandth of fraction of the power of one of those bombs. And so I think people become, especially at the start, as you mentioned, a little breathless about this bomb, and I think a little perspective in context is probably useful. So
will we see more use for this type of weapon? And if so, what's the strategic significance of that?
Yeah, I think we probably will. There are not many of these bombs. There's only 16, as far as I know, in existence, maybe 15 now that we've dropped this one. It requires some special circumstances. You have to be far from civilians and cities. You have to have a fairly lucrative target because it's a $16 million weapon. You don't want to drop that on 2 or 3 people and take them out. But I think in the situations where there's a fairly good-sized target away from civilians and their cities, I think we could see this again.
The other conversation, General, that we keep having this week is that, you know, is what, in terms of what might happen next, is whether, as you say, it may be used again, and it's certainly nowhere near nuclear, but what's the message, right? Everybody said, well, is there a message to North Korea? Is there a message to Syria? Is there a message to ISIS? Is it always a larger message, or is it just about accomplishing some sort of strategic initiative, in this case going after these fighters near the border with Pakistan? What do you think?
I don't think the general in charge over there, General Nicholson, intended it as a message. I think he's over there trying to prosecute the war as best he can. Other people will look at that and probably take something away from it, that the United States, the commanders on the ground, have been given the authority to prosecute the war. The restrictions, all the limitations that might have been in there in the past have come off. And so I think that does send a message, maybe not the same message that some people are kind of reading into.
Well, it'd probably be a larger message, right, if it was the president himself authorizing this specific bomb being used in this specific time, as opposed to a general taking advantage of an authority that he's been granted by the president, right?
I think you're right. But I also take a lot of comfort the fact that that general has been trusted enough to use a weapon, never been used before, and he's been granted the authority to use it.
Think the culture's really changed in the military?
I do. I think we have seen this over the last couple of weeks and months. Generals have been given authority to conduct operations and strikes in Somalia that they did not have before. I think things are changing.
It's all positive, you think? There's no risk to that, or that's a good thing? I'm sure people in the military, and that's your background, would argue, yeah, we needed this, right?
I don't see a drawback. You know, there are standing rules of engagement that weapons can be only used in certain circumstances, civilian casualties minimized. The generals, the admirals, they're well aware of those rules, so I don't think there's any dangers in this.
All right, it's a good discussion and some good perspective now that we have at least a day to take a step back. General Spoehr, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you coming on with us.
Thank you, Connell.
The Republicans facing, you know,